All right, everybody, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? Hope you're having a nice evening or whatever time it is where you are. I'm here to record another Private Citizen. Ooh. Put a lot of rum in that tea. Man, I wanted to fortify my tea. I might have fortified it too much. Woo. Another Private Citizen episode. This is going to be like a combo one. Thank you, super user. I was hosting a webinar again this morning, so I just left the. Are you joining a jazz band? Are you? No, I'm not. So I left it on. Just might as well for the stream. This is a nice shirt. I love it. My father gave it to me at some point. It wasn't fitting him, and it's falling apart. But I still love it. I actually used to go to work like this at Heise. And whenever I was wearing a tie, everyone was asking me, like, was I applying for another job or something? I was like, no, I just like wearing ties. The tea is fortified like the election. Yeah, it's, what do you call it? Is it a gunfire, isn't it? If only the audio listeners knew. Yeah, they have no idea. I do publish the video version. So if you go to the show notes, there's a link here that takes you to a YouTube playlist where I export everything. So yes, the behind the scenes. Not that I'm not wishing I'm joining it. I would join a jazz band, like that would be amazing. I mean, I'm just not musical enough. I'm listening to a lot of jazz. You also have a fedora. Can you be more hipster? I don't know. Is this hipster? Wait. It's not just any fedora either. It's a beaver fedora. And watch this. Actually, I can do this. Oh well, that's the wrong side. You didn't see that. Okay, let's put it here. Right. I can do this when I'm on call. I do that. That's actually, I had these made. They're like laminated. I got my contact details on the back. Thought they might come in handy at some point. I love this hat. I'd be wearing it the whole show. But I like these headphones, and I kind of need them, so that the audio quality is up to snuff. Unrelated, I've always wondered why you wear headphones when recording when it's just you speaking. That's just me though. Black hat, yeah, it's a black hat. I'm monitoring myself, so I'm running this microphone just in case. I can press. Is there anything like sensible on this? Well, should probably cover up this letter, which I think. Oh, there's like fucking confidential information everywhere on this. I should wait. Give me a second. I should put that down here. Well, that's good. Everything else should be fine. My desk is a mess, so don't mind that. Do I actually have that camera here? I do have that camera. All right. Hello. So right, I'm running this microphone into this USB interface, and that's obviously going to my computer. But I'm directly monitoring this. So I have a mix of what's coming from my computer, i.e. shit like this. Right? I hear that. And then I also hear my own voice. So that's, if you have a microphone like this where it's kind of important how far away you are from it. You don't want it to pop. You still want to, have your beautiful voice sound great. So you can monitor yourself. And that's kind of like, I got used to that doing audio podcasts, and so I kind of stuck with it. There's lots of YouTubers who don't do that, obviously, right? And they also record podcasts, so you can do it without monitoring yourself. You also have a big ass knife. I do have a big ass knife, right? That's my Bowie. No, the Bowie. It's Bowie knife, ain't it? Isn't it? Yeah, I got that. In case somebody comes in the door and I have to knife them. I always have that sitting. Actually use that when I go camping mostly. I respect you for being able to hear your own voice for an hour straight, especially if it's lagging behind by a few seconds. Anyway, sorry for the off topic. No, don't be sorry. I mean, that's why I do this video stuff as well, to give people some behind the scenes. You might want to record a podcast someday, and I know this stuff because I had to research all this myself, and I would have been great if somebody talked about this, behind the scenes stuff. So it might come in handy at some point. It's not on a delay. So the important point is that this is real time, right? It goes right from the microphone in here, and it's like no delay at all. It's like studio monitoring. That's the only way that works. If it was on a delay, you'd be fucking just messing with yourself. As for being able to listen to your own voice, I know people don't like that feeling, and it goes away. I remember I had it. Well, I can't remember. I remember I had to remember specifically at some point that in the future I will remember in the future that I hated my voice back then. I can't remember how it was, but I was when it went away, I went I got to remember this, that it goes away, and that you can tell people that it's just it's your feeling. What happens is you have an idea of what your voice sounds like, and then when you hear it, it actually sounds different. And when you then continue to do that, let's say you do a podcast every week, like I started to do, after a few months, in your head, this is some weird, amazing shit, the impression of what your voice is and what you hear, so what the actual voice is, will merge. And for a while, it's like you hear both, and then you just hear what other people hear. Especially when you do it like me, when you do this a lot, right? You always monitor yourself. So anybody who works in radio, they do this shit. So I've talked to professional radio people, and it's exactly the same for them. It's really cool, actually, because that's a huge, for a lot of people, that's a huge barrier to be able to do podcasts. Even if they don't listen back while they do it, if they edit it. For me, it was mostly the editing. In the beginning, which annoyed me. My own voice annoyed me. I always wanted to have a deeper voice, and I thought I never had a good voice for radio. But it's changing as well. I got used to it, but it's also changing when you get older. You drink a lot of whiskey. That helps. I kind of like it. It got a little bit more gravelly. It's still high. I still have a high-ass voice. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. I did the audio test beforehand, so we're set. We're good to go. We can do this. So today we're going to be talking about the CIA plot to abduct or kill Assange, which was in the news a while ago, which I've had on the docket, until now, until I got to it. And then yesterday I read another piece by Glenn Greenwald about Pierre Omidyar, who was founding The Intercept, and is a billionaire, and he's founding this Facebook whistleblower, and I thought I wanted to report on that. I wanted to be, originally I thought these were two, I just do two topics, somebody also suggested, I can't remember who it was, on the Discord, and then I realized, really, it's the same topic. So I'm going to try to segue, but the CIA one is obviously probably going to be the longer one. It's a pretty interesting story. Most people, probably have heard about it, but I thought it was still worth covering it in depth. Anyway, let's do this. Let's try to record this podcast, shall we? As usual, you know this. You've been here. Ground rules apply. Not engaging with chat as much. Everything's muted while I do this podcast. Or am I just gonna record an amazing saxophone solo? No, I'm going to do a podcast. I wouldn't even begin how to play a fucking saxophone. I wish I could, man. That's such a good instrument. Anyway, let's do this. Let's start this show. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 93 for Wednesday, the 27th of October, 2021. Kinetic options. Hello everybody, my name is Fab, come to you live from Düsseldorf in Germany, where it's dark and cold and it's the winter and I've got tea. It's fortified tea, I put rum in it, and there's gunfire I think. Put too much rum in it, so this might be an interesting show. We're gonna talk about two topics today. One I wanted to talk about for a while, it's been on the list, the CIA plans about Assange killing, abducting him, whatever. It's a very interesting story. And then I read another interesting piece by Greenwald on Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, and who, how she's basically bankrolled by Pierre Omidyar, who's like a billionaire, the eBay founder. And I was going to do like two separate topics, but I think they work together. So I'll try to weave them in together. Let's see if that works. Right. As usual, I'm doing this live on Twitch as I'm recording this. I'm streaming the show with video, of course. We'll have some live feedback probably from Twitch chat, which is always cool. I like doing it, and I like giving people a bit of a behind the scenes look. I have like I share my screen and you can see how I'm recording the show. Also, of course, if you want to see this after the fact, there's if you go to privatecitizen.press, there's the show notes on there, so all the background material, because the show wants you to think for yourself. So I give you all the stuff to do that. And then there's a link also, it talks about Twitch channel up the top. There's like this box, and there's a link to a YouTube playlist. So Twitch records these and I upload these to YouTube. And I've been told today that people who are only listening to the audio version are missing something, because apparently I look like a jazz player or something. I don't know. I had a speaking engagement this morning, and so I was wearing a shirt and a tie and suspenders. And I just, I thought, just stayed professional. Might as well, not change into the pajama to stream. Let's mix up Twitchy a little bit and look respectable. So, if you want to see that, go to privatecitizen.press. Go there anyway for the show notes. This is episode 93. So it's privatecitizen.press/episode/93. But at the top, there's also links to all the episodes and a contact link, which I'll mention later because I like feedback. So if you feel anything about this podcast, you feel like that I'm wrong or that I'm right, please feel free to write me. I look forward to your viewpoints. And with that, let's get into the first topic, which is CIA and their plans about Wikileaks and Julian Assange. So I don't know, do I have to explain? Maybe. I mean, we never really talked about Wikileaks on this show so far, which is amazing in 93 episodes. Maybe I should give a quick, overview of what WikiLeaks is, who Assange is, and how I feel about the whole situation. Because I have mixed feelings about WikiLeaks. It's a very complicated topic. So Julian Assange is a Australian, I don't know, he's a journalist. I think he worked as a journalist before, but he's also like a computer programmer, a bit of a hacker. He started a website called WikiLeaks, which was in hindsight obvious, a combination out of creating wiki and having giving whistleblowers the opportunity to upload raw material. So instead of them, the standard model being whistleblower gives that to a journalist, the journalist decides what to publish. In this case, it's more direct to the public, like kind of bypassing the press, which, I mean, I'm a professional journalist, but I can understand, I've been very critical of the press, as you know. I can understand the impulse to want to bypass the press. I don't think, sometimes with the reporting that results, I can see how somebody who is just trying to get information out would be disappointed. So to me, this was a straightforward thing. Of course, Assange made himself a lot of enemies doing this, which was inevitable. and he ended up being, I don't think, was he actually indicted? I think he was indicted, right, in Sweden for rape allegations, and he fled those, because he was he was just visiting Sweden for a while and living there, and then he just fled to the UK. So he was afraid. He always denied these allegations, I don't really want to get into whether they are justified and what happened. We don't know. The only thing we know is that Sweden by now has actually dropped these, so there are no charges against Assange. They're not even looking for him anymore. Anyway, so he fled because he didn't want to. He was afraid that wherever he was, in this case Sweden, there would be political pressure to use this these charges of rape to extradite him to the US once he was actually, imprisoned, basically, in the legal system. Because, of course, one thing he did is, as part of his work, let's call it that, with WikiLeaks, he helped Manning, Chelsea Manning, back in the day, Bradley Manning, to steal, as the critics would say, information pertaining to the wars in Afghanistan. So, Manning obviously been indicted for treason for that. Served some time, got pardoned, but now they're looking for Assange for that. But basically, Assange, I think it's not even about the charges. He was just afraid they're gonna drum up anything, and they're gonna try to convict him in the US for spying, because he helped, in his work with WikiLeaks, obviously helped leak these materials. Which is an issue that is close to your heart if you're a journalist, because if you consider him a journalist, that's the exact same thing a journalist would do. Right? You're talking about, let's say some writer at the New York Times, gets a whistleblower from the army or whatever, from intelligence, leaking this kind of stuff, and then indicting that journalist for that hacking, because apparently their point revolves around Assange not only publishing the materials, but helping Manning to hack them, right? Help to access these servers. You can debate whether that is a journalistic thing to do, but I can tell you from my personal experience working, writing about IT security, that not hacking to get materials, but as a journalist, often you will be faced with the dilemma of somebody coming to you saying, "Oh, I found this security vulnerability," and as a journalist who takes their job seriously, as part of your research, you will have to independently verify that that's true. And that could bring you in a new situation where you actually, make yourself, you'll actually do something that is that you could get indicted for. That's criminal. So it's kind of that same situation. That's why this whole, we're going to talk about that in a bit. The whole question of whether WikiLeaks is actually, and Assange is a journalist, and that's very important. Super user says in Twitch chat, Assange was an Emacs user when he was a programmer, and you can still find and use some of his scripts dating back to the 90s. The guy as a person, I don't think I find him very, appealing, very, very, I'm not very sympathetic to him as a person. I find him a bit creepy, and that he's an Emacs user just cements that for me. If you said he was a Vim user, I'd be more open to considering the guy a friend. I don't know. Super user says WikiLeaks did make some serious mistakes, like publishing a list of every gay man in Baghdad, things a panel of journalists would have hopefully highlighted. You can imagine what happened to them in such a conservative country. Yes, true, but journalists make a lot of mistakes themselves, right? Who was actually The Intercept, when they published the material they got from Reality Winner, they actually helped convict reality winner. I think her, is it? I don't even know. I don't even know who cares. Convict them because they were found. I think it was the CIA, right? They were leaked from the CIA or the NSA. I don't know. But basically there were some hidden printer dots on the document, and the Intercept just scanned it in. And journalists have made these mistakes. That is a valid argument, but it's the same argument that people in the air quotes intelligence community level against WikiLeaks. They risk exposing operatives and stuff like that. Yes, true. But I mean, it's balancing, right? I would say yes, that's a problem. That's why I'm historically, if you listen back to very old podcasts I did, when we were mainly talking about Linux, for example, Linux Outlaws, but we were talking about stuff like this as well. Always, because I'm a political human, right? I'm a political animal. I like talking about politics, obviously. That was always my my problem with WikiLeaks. But the counterpoint is that traditional media and the way they publish these things have basically a little bit ruined their reputation, right? There have been many instances where whistleblowers went to established publications and they were just afraid or didn't, for some political reason, didn't want to publish the stuff, or they watered it down or whatever. Or simple things is just turning it into clickbait, basically. So it's like basically anything in the world is like a gray area, right? There's some things about WikiLeaks that are not good, that I don't like. But there are things about WikiLeaks that are better than, or their model, let's put it that way, like the model of releasing something directly. And they didn't release everything directly, right? They themselves vetted stuff. They were just sometimes not as experienced or maybe a bit more radical than a traditional journalist would have been, right? And I kind of like that about them. Sometimes they went, okay, we're going to publish this. Who cares about CIA spies? And I can understand that feeling. Because, I mean, if you are, an operative for the CIA and you're in a foreign country, you're in danger of your life anyway, right? That is not, like, I don't have sympathy for these people. These are people who undermine other countries, undermine democracies, kill people, do renditions and other horrible stuff, torture people. It's a bit eye for an eye when it comes to that, I feel. I appreciate used to run an ISP, says Super User, but are most tech journalists equipped to properly verify security stories and solutions? Cybersecurity is a field of study by itself that's beyond the average programmer, let alone writer. You're true. I didn't run an ISP. I used to work at an ISP for a while in a very low level support role. But yes, you're right. I've worked for I'm not a typical journalist. I've worked for a very specialized publication where we actually could do these things. And if you can't, you should find somebody. A large part of what I did at Heiser was actually helping out other journalists. And we always offered more mainstream publications to help them. We were constantly trying to interface with people at the level of, Zeit, Spiegel, something like that. And we did some collaborations. But one of the reasons why I got very disillusioned with, I'll just call it mainstream media, because that's what it is. The publications that most people read, was that they didn't even want help because of course everybody wants a scoop. And especially if journalism, that's also why I don't like J School. If journalists went to J School, which I never did, they seem to get drummed into their head that like the scoop is the most important thing. And I constantly worked for people who prioritized getting the story right over getting first. And that's why Heiser is not a mainstream publication, because they will take a long time to publish a story. They'll always get scooped. But their stories are, consistently better than anybody else's, because they just get people with the technical expertise. And I think if you work at a big newspaper, and you don't have that expertise, you have to get somebody to get that expertise. And you have to, I feel like you have to check this stuff. But it's not only what I was referring to, that if you're a journalist, you make yourself, you might do something that's illegal. That happens to all journalists. If you are political journalists, you might get embroiled into stuff that will get corruption charges leveled against you, whatever. If you're on the police beat, I've known people in Germany on the police beat who, back in, it was actually only quite a few years ago when, wasn't that long ago when the police switched to digital encrypted radio. A long time ago, it was just analog and you could just listen to it. And I knew people who were on the police beat who had police scanners, which is actually legal in Germany. It's not like in the US where, that's actually, the police is actually in many ways, it's not allowed to encrypt, which is why I can listen to LAPD radio over the internet, which is kind of cool. But in Germany, listening to that's actually criminally, like you get jail time for that kind of stuff. But, there's an assumption that when you're doing a job and you're kind of working for the public, right, it's still illegal, but you probably won't get indicted for this kind of stuff. So it applies to every journalist a little bit. So, that's why even journalists like me who didn't like Assange and I was kind of a little bit, I didn't like WikiLeaks methods that much for the reasons we just discussed. But even journalists that were much more hostile to him, and there were a lot because, for a while there, journalists kind of saw themselves threatened by this new model, right? Because if you want to scoop and you kind of have to court whistleblowers, they should come to you. Now, if they can just leak this stuff on the internet, why should they come to you? They're probably more safer that way either. So you lose these stories, and the press will lose out on that. So many people were very hostile to him, but pretty much every journalist still defended him because it's very clear that if he gets labeled not a journalist, or if as a journalist they do certain things to him, then all of us are next. Because essentially what it comes down to is we're doing the same job. We're doing the same work. And that's why I consider Assange a journalist. Because at the end of the day, what he is doing, well, he's kind of in jail right now, so he can't do that. But, what he was doing was informing the public in the interest of the public. That's essentially what a journalist is. The same reason why I don't make a distinction between a blogger and somebody who works at the New York Times. The distinction might be reach, but sometimes the blogger even has more reach. Who cares? It's about what they're doing and how are they doing it. Are they actually, right? There's different bloggers, right? There's people who basically just, they're influencers or whatever. They're just recycling PR from companies. I don't consider them journalists. But if they actually do journalistic work and they're trying to be as objective, or or they're trying to write stuff from their viewpoint, but being transparent about it in the interest of the consumer or the general public, then I would consider a journalist, right? Whereas an influencer who is just getting money for or the PR person who writes, they even might write it on a site that looks like it's a journalistic site, but if it's only meant to basically pay the bills and project PR outwards, then it's not in the interest of the public, I feel. But anyway, so, that's WikiLeaks, that's Julian Assange. Obviously, he went to jail. He didn't go to jail. He fled Sweden. Then he was in the UK. Then he was actually, I think he was indicted, right? There was a court case, and they gave him an ankle bracelet. And so he basically had to remand himself. He had to be at the mercy of the court. And he fled. He took that thing off, and he fled to the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he was holed up for, I think, 7 years, right? Until they revoked his status, kicked him out. The British police picked him up, carried him out, and now he's been in custody, even though and then they kind of fudged it, because at that point the Swedish had dropped their charges, and they were like, we're not interested in getting this guy, and we're not interested in getting him in, extradited to the US. because our charges have nothing to do with. I think actually the judge in the case, I think it was a she. I can't remember. I don't know. But like they were basically saying they have actually no interest in carrying this further because there's not enough proof that Assange actually, raped somebody. And we're talking Swedish rape laws are very strict. They're some of the strictest in the world. There are in Germany the bar for rape to prove that it was rape is really high. So you have to actually the victim has to prove that it wasn't consensual. You can't just say it wasn't consensual. In Sweden, it's somewhat more complicated and somewhat easier to actually convict somebody, as far as I understand the law. I'm obviously not a lawyer, and I'm not Swedish. But anyway, so they were dropping that as I said there wasn't enough evidence, and they also said they don't want to be like a public. They don't want this to be a public thing, a political play thing where like now it's just a tool for the US to get him extradited. But anyway, in the UK, the legal system kind of fudged it, and they were kind of creative because they then actually arrested Assange for jumping bail. Because 7 years ago, when he went to the Ecuadorian embassy, obviously he was out on bail or whatever, like with the ankle bracelet. At the time, I read something about this that was a bit wobbly as to like what the statute of limitation or something is on that in the UK. I don't know, but they obviously have a case. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in jail. But they were pretty creative. Then put him in jail. And currently, actually, he is. A judge said he's not going to be extradited to the US, so he'll serve a sentence for which isn't that long, I think, for jumping bail in the UK, and then he's free. But that was like on psychological grounds. His psychologist said that he would probably like be under risk of suicide if he was extradited to the US. And now there's actually an appeal. I think the second hearing is actually tomorrow, and then there'll be a decision later on whether that gets overturned. So he might still get extradited. The US apparently have made some concessions where they said they weren't going to put him in some like supermax prison. I think Florence. I don't know why that was specifically bad. I think that's where all the terrorists are. Is a PBX Florence. But they also said they might give him the option to actually surface, like they wanted to, I think, convict him in the US and then serve his time in Australia, but Australia hasn't said whether they actually want him. Super user says, this is spicy, but do you think the suicide stuff is real regarding Assange? Think back to Epstein and McAfee in particular. He was going pretty crazy in the embassy apparently, but in fairness, he was locked into a small room for about 6 years. Yeah, I think he's definitely has psychological issues. He must have. He's been locked in that room, right? With like, they actually had to install a shower for him because he didn't have, in the beginning, didn't have any real like hygiene, facilities. He's definitely, he must be. I don't think he was ever the stablest person to begin with. I don't know if he's at risk of suicide. I have no idea. I don't know what happened with Epstein either. It does look a bit fishy, but I don't know. With McAfee, I actually don't know. McAfee was crazy. I think we can say that. I mean, if you've seen the video with McAfee going, how do you install like McAfee antivirus, and he's like snorting blow off his laptop, and then it's like there's hookers everywhere, and then he literally like fucking shoots his fucking laptop with a 45 and says it's the only way to uninstall this crap. I mean, the guy was a bit unhinged, so I don't know. All bets are off. I don't know what happened there. I wouldn't like what we're going to talk about now. Keeping that in mind, I wouldn't put it past the US, as they call themselves, intelligence community, to make him disappear. once he's in the US. Right? He'll have an accident. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So what happened? So we had, when was this actually published? I should probably look this up. Link, of course, Private Citizen Press. On 26th of September, Yahoo News, of all places, published a very long story, very interesting story, talking to, as they say, more than 30 former US officials, 8 of whom described details of the CIA's proposal to abduct Assange. And, obviously unnamed sources, so who knows. But this sounds very plausible, I think. So basically, these sources said that there were plans to both abduct Assange, having several scenarios about that, and then there were questions raised to kill him. So I don't think it sounds like a likely story, especially if you read some books about the CIA and what they've pulled in the past. I don't think it's at least unrealistic or a conspiracy theory to say they had options for this. I think they always have options for everything. And I also believe that Pompeo and probably Trump went, can we do something about this? That doesn't mean that Trump wanted to do it, but I think it's realistic to assume that they were thinking about this. So why did this happen? Of course. So let's sketch this a little bit. So Assange is in the embassy. It's Obama's presidency, and Obama was originally relatively tame on WikiLeaks and basically classified them as journalists and said, we're not going to do anything about these guys. And then still, while this was happening, the Snowden stuff happened and we had the NSA revelations. That's when it turned, like the security apparatus, even during the Obama presidency, kind of turned against WikiLeaks. But apparently the Obama presidency was still adamant that these people are journalists, and that later changed. I'm gonna go back into that. I just remembered maybe at the beginning I should just quickly talk about what the actual plans were. So I'm just gonna read a quick bit from the story on Yahoo News. In response, the CIA and White House. So this is so basically Assange is in the embassy, and they get wind of Russia wanting to break him out and get him to Russia. Right. This is after Snowden. So Putin's done that with Snowden. It's been a great PR coup for him. So they're thinking the Russians going to do this again. In response, the CIA and the White House began preparing for a number of scenarios to foil Assange's Russian departure plans, according to 3 former officials. Those included potential gun battles with Kremlin operatives on the streets of London, crashing a car into a Russian diplomatic vehicle transporting Assange and then grabbing him, and shooting out the tires of a Russian plane carrying Assange before it could take off for Moscow. US officials asked their British counterparts to do the shooting if gunfire was required, and the British agreed, according to a former senior administration official. So this all, Obama was more on a posture where it's we're not going to do anything about these guys. Then Snowden happens, and obviously connected to WikiLeaks, and Greenwald and all of that. And then Obama and the administration actually changed their feel, because their approach, because the feeling inside the so-called intelligence community, the spooks, is this is really bad. This is shitty. We can't have that. So the approach changes to let's spy on those. Right. So as the story says, in the wake of the Snowden revelations, the Obama administration allowed the intelligence community to prioritize collection on WikiLeaks, according to Evanina, who he was the top intelligence official until the beginning of this year. now the CEO of Ivanina Group. Previously, if the FBI needed a search warrant to go into the group's databases in the United States or wanted to use subpoena power or a national security letter to gain access to WikiLeaks related financial records, that quote, that wasn't going to happen, another former senior counterintelligence official said. That changed after 2013. So after Snowden, we're getting a different posture of the US government towards WikiLeaks, whistleblowers, and stuff like that. And so what they're now trying to do is actually, this is like, I think, a concerted effort by a lot of people in the US intelligence apparatus and the government to some degree. This is still the Obama government. Basically to have WikiLeaks and Assange reclassified from journalists, because, you know, Obama's thing hinges on their journalists, their protections, First Amendment stuff. We have to care about this, like with the same thing that journalists were saying, right? This is going to set a precedent, so we can't, like, we have to treat these guys as journalists. Now, there was in the intelligence community, they were trying to change that. Or as the story says, still chafing at the limits in place after it was relaxed in 2013. Still limits, right? Still chafing at the limits in place. Top intelligence officials lobbied the White House to redefine WikiLeaks and some high-profile journalists as, quote, information brokers, including Greenwald, by the way. Greenwald and Laura Poitras, which would have opened up the use of more investigative tools against them, potentially paving the way for their prosecution, according to former officials. Is WikiLeaks a journalistic outlet? Are Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald truly journalists? The former official said. We tried to change the definition of them, and then I preached this to the White House and got rejected. Yeah, of course you got, because of course Glenn Greenwald's the fucking journalist. He was working for the Guardian at the time. I mean, if you can reclassify Glenn Greenwald as a, not, you know, from journalist to something else, to like foreign spy, information broker, whatever, then you can, you know, declassify any journalist. Now, one thing I have to point out that this whole story doesn't point out, and it's a very long story, which I find kind of mind-boggling. We're generally talking about Assange being a journalist or not. And then we're talking about him getting abducted illegally. Clearly, the story is like, oh, they weren't clear if that was legal. What do you mean? You're a US entity. You're going to London to abduct an Australian citizen. Like, the guy could be the most wanted guy on your most wanted list. Basically, Osama bin Laden. Who the fuck cares? You have no jurisdiction. You're not allowed to go to London and just abduct people. And when they're not even your citizens, it makes it even worse, because you get like a third country involved who, you know, who might have claims or whatever. Of course it was illegal. And when you're talking about abducting or even like killing these people, what the fuck does it care if they're does it matter if they're journalists or not? Right? I get the press angle. That's what I talked about earlier. I get that. I'm a journalist, but still, we're talking about kidnapping civilians here, maybe killing them. Like, why, like, what? That's how, like, that's why I fucking hate intelligence people. Because, like, how perverted does your brain have to be if you make the decision, if you're kidnapping or shooting somebody, like, related to their fucking job? Like, legally, you're clearly doing something wrong. Clearly. Like, why does, like, I mean, I don't think it's like putting yourself out there. It would have been putting yourself out there by the fucking Yahoo News. Yahoo, it sounds like a fucking redneck news. Yahoo News. Look, leaders, I got the latest issue of the Yahoo News. Like, you're not putting yourself out there if you say, of course this would have been illegal. You don't have to. I'm not a fucking lawyer. It's clearly illegal. Like, it's illegal in local law in the UK. It's illegal in international law. It's like, you don't have to go to law school to figure that out. And then, of course, that is, of course, the case. And it's, of course, also morally wrong. Like, clearly. Talking about shooting the guy. Doesn't matter if he's a journalist or not. Like, what the fuck, man? I don't get it. So now they're debating about this, right? The FBI, the NSA, the CIA, all of these 16 fucking intelligence services or however many they have. now. I think it's a new one every month, isn't it? We're like 2015 and they're debating this shit, right? And this is before Trump got elected. Now we have the email leak, the Clinton email leak. And now suddenly it turns. Like this is before Trump, even before Trump, the Obama administration, after the Clinton leak, when WikiLeaks published, so Hillary Clinton, very quickly, this is not a conspiracy theory, this is fact as we know it. Hillary Clinton had an email server that was not on like the government systems, right? She had her own email server, which is understandable. It was a campaign server or something, which apparently was illegal. But I'm not a specialist in that kind of, whatever that law, like election law, or whatever that would be. But she had that email server. That email server got hacked. The hacked emails got leaked by WikiLeaks. Now, the U.S. intelligence services figured out, apparently, that the so-called hacker, who went by the name of Guccifer 2.0, was actually the GRU. So that's the Russian... isn't it actually the internal? I'm going to have to look this up now. The GRU is the... No, it's the military intelligence service. Yeah, it was oh God, Yevgeny's going to write in about this. Glavnoye Razvedyavtelno Glavnoye Razvedyavtelnoye Upralevnie. I think Upralevnie is service, isn't it? Yeah, so the military intelligence service. Anyway, so this alleged hacker was apparently the Russians, right? Astro C says, this is actually a good question from Twitch chat. After all these years, I still don't get why the US want Assange. Does he have secrets or just as a warning to others? You got it. It's first of all, it's revenge. They actually say that in the story. I'm not didn't want to get into that. I thought it wasn't that important, but yes, they were embarrassed. The CIA was personally embarrassed by this guy. They want revenge, and also they want to. Yeah, if they have to make an example of him, right? Because if he gets away, that sends the message that you can actually steal fucking and publish secrets from the U.S. intelligence services, armed forces, and like fucking embarrass them, and you can get away. They do not want that under any circumstances, so that's why they want him. But yes, so okay, back to the Clinton email server. What we have to point out here, which I never talked about this because we never talked about this on the show, but I think this is very important. This is something people do not get in that discussion. There's lots of conspiracy theories. I don't want to debate if Trump won the election because of that, as Yahoo News just takes as fact. I don't know if you can actually figure that out. Did it have influence on the election? Like that, proving that actually is like a huge can of worms. I don't know. I don't care. Like in that whole discussion and this back and forth and this vitriol and political shit, what most people just leave out of that is the following. What Assange and WikiLeaks did there was, illegal access to a server. We can discuss if that's ethical. We can discuss if that's good journalistic practice. Let's put it that way. It's not. I think that's easy. But what pretty much everybody in this discussion leaves out, which I think is by the side on, let's say, the Democrat side that are like anti-Trump, whatever, they do this on purpose. They're trying to obfuscate one simple fact. This was all true. Nobody faked any emails. It doesn't really matter to the public, right? Let's look at that. We're the private citizens, right? This is a podcast from a private citizen for a private citizen. I only care about the public and what's good for the public. Not the rich people, the politicians, I don't give a fuck. The elites, they can go fuck themselves. It's about us, you and me. We're just getting by on our fucking salary or whatever, or me and my Patreon money. Who cares? Like, for us, somebody released true things that were facts that existed for us to read. That was a net good for society, I feel. Right? These emails weren't fake. They weren't nobody ever, even like from the Clinton camp, in the fucking DNC, nobody ever claimed that these were fake, that they were made up or anything. And so there are two things. First of all, it's all true, and somebody just provided information to the public, which, the end don't justify the means. I'm not saying that, but like generally, yes, it came from suspicious circumstances, illegal circumstances, whatever, but it's a benefit to the public, first of all, because you can read the politicians' emails. You can see what's going on, the dealings, and there's shitty stuff in there, which, if you'd released Trump emails, it would have been the exact same thing. It's one-sided. Yes, it's probably influenced the election. That's all bad. But, just the pure stuff. Nobody made anything up. This is just all stuff that existed. And secondly, it just came out because Clinton or her campaign was running this shitty email server, and they were running it shittily, right? So if they had actually done stuff like they were apparently required to by the law, as far as I understand it, they might have not gotten hacked because maybe somebody would have run that email server who knew how to secure it. And I can tell you one thing. In my whole life, I've been using computers since 1989. I've run a lot of servers and a lot of crap. I've never, ever, succumbed to the hubris of thinking, I can run my own email server. Because that's a fucking nightmare. And to do that correctly and securely is as far as I'm concerned, it's up there with the Apollo program. To get that right. If you can do that, if you listen to this and you're a mail administrator and you're doing this shit and you're doing it correctly, my hats off to you. Unbelievable. I can't even imagine where to start. So first of all, they fucked up. Second of all, this is all just true information. So what exactly is your issue here? Right? If it's the Russians, and they did this to influence the election, that's a good story. I'm not saying that's meaningless. That's important. Holy shit, that's a good story. But you shouldn't use that story to retract from whatever was in that emails, because that's also a good story. And this whole email leak is a very good argument for why WikiLeaks is important. Because normal journalists wouldn't have touched this thing with a fucking 5-mile pole. This would have never gotten published, right? And we've seen the exact thing repeat itself. This is why Greenwald quit The Intercept, because the same thing happened with the fucking Biden laptop, where they went, that's not real, we're not publishing that. That's why you fucking need WikiLeaks. If something like that is an issue for the public, and that's my opinion, and this is why I do a podcast where I give you all the details, all the links, and then I encourage you to think for yourself. That's the whole thing about the show. And, you might disagree with me. I don't care about that. Just fucking read it yourself. Think about it yourself. If there's such a back and forth about if this fucking laptop's real, just fucking release it, and then everybody can see. I realize there's going to be collateral damage. I realize there's probably going to be naked pictures on there of people who are innocent. But that's on fucking Hunter Biden or whatever. In the email leak, there are fucking emails that shouldn't be in there where people who are just, who haven't deserved this. But, life is hard sometimes. And I'm not usually not the good of the many outweighs the good of the few. I think that's a fallacy. I've talked about this before. But I'm concerned with the interest of the public. And sometimes these things are in the interest of the public. And sometimes we have to see that. Especially if it's, in this case, we're not even going, is it like Hillary Clinton versus the public? This is the fucking CIA versus the public. I think in that case, it's always good for the public. If intelligence services are concerned, the only reason an intelligence service exists, right? Let me tell you this as somebody who studies history and politics. It is clear if you study history and politics. It is clear as day. The only reason an intelligence service exists is because the state has to or wants to, depends on how you see it, do things that have to be off the book, that are against laws. That's the reason why intelligence services exist. And then the argument is, in general, it is important for the state to survive, so it's better for the public. But if the public actually gets information about what they're doing and can decide for themselves, like, what's not to love? That's exactly what we need. That's how I feel. Anyway, so 2015, they were discussing this, and then the DNC hack happens. Hillary's emails get leaked, and as the story says on Yahoo News, the CIA now considered people affiliated with WikiLeaks valid targets for various types of spying, including close-in technical collection, such as bugs, sometimes enabled by in-person espionage, and remote operations, in air quotes, meaning, among other things, the hacking of WikiLeaks members' devices from afar, according to former intelligence officials. The Obama administration's view of WikiLeaks underwent what Evanina described as a, quote, sea change shortly before Donald Trump, helped in part by WikiLeaks' release of Democratic campaign emails, won a surprise victory over Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. This is, they're now spying on these people. Like now it's even for Obama, they hit us, right? The Democratic Party, now it's personal spy on those guys. And then, of course, once Trump comes in, it's like, now, of course, they're doing that, right? So, as Trump's national security team took their positions at the Justice Department and the CIA, officials wondered whether, despite his campaign trail declaration of, quote, love for WikiLeaks, Trump's appointees would take a more hardline view of the organization. They were not to be disappointed. Quote, there was a fundamental change on how WikiLeaks was viewed, end quote, said a former senior counterintelligence official. When it came to prosecuting Assange, something the Obama administration had declined to do, the Trump White House the question is, like, if Obama would have been in office after this, or Clinton would have got elected despite the leaks, that probably would have changed anyway. But that's my personal opinion. Something the Obama administration had declined to do, the Trump White House had a different approach, said a former Justice Department official. Quote, nobody in that crew was going to be too broken up about the First Amendment issues, end quote. That sounds like Trump, to be honest. So we're going from, they're journalists, we can't do anything about it, to, like, we're now fucking, like, clearly spying on them. Because what happens now is Vault 7. This was even before that. So the Clinton emails happen. Now Obama even is like, okay, we're spying. Trump comes in, they're like, okay, let's do this. Let's spy more, let's whatever. And now it gets personal, because what happens now, immediately after Trump is in office, is Vault 7, i.e. WikiLeaks releases the CIA's, like, top secret hacking tools. Like, the actual, like, part of the software, stuff like that. This is even more damaging than Snowden was for the NSA. And now the gloves come off. Now, because we're talking Trump, like Pompeo, who's just been appointed boss of the CIA, gives a speech where he says, WikiLeaks walks like hostile intelligence service and talks like hostile intelligence service, and has encouraged its followers to find jobs at the CIA in order to obtain intelligence. It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is, a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. Now, you'd think this is propaganda, but Yahoo News actually makes a good point. So they have, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff on this, right? So what they're saying, so this is in response to Vault 7, and now everything changes, because now it's personal. The CIA is basically facing as they call it in the story, a catastrophe. And now, something else happens, because I'm going to read some stuff from the story now. The immediate question facing Pompeo and the CIA was how to hit back against WikiLeaks and Assange. Agency officials found the answer in a legal sleight of hand. So they're employing a trick here. Usually, for US intelligence to secretly interfere with the activities of any foreign actor, the president must sign a document called a finding that authorizes such covert action, which must also be briefed to the House and Senate intelligence committees. In very sensitive cases, notification is limited to Congress's so-called Gang of Eight, the 4 leaders of the House and Senate, plus the chairperson and ranking member of the 2 committees. But there's an important carve-out. Many of the same actions, if taken against another spy service, are considered, quote, offensive counterintelligence activities, which the CIA is allowed to conduct without getting a presidential finding or having to brief Congress, according to several former intelligence officials. Often, the CIA makes these decisions internally based on interpretations of so-called common law. Of course, they make it internally, passed down in secret within the agency's legal core. I don't think people realize how much the CIA can do under offensive counterintelligence and how there is minimal oversight of it, said a former official. I don't know, if you've been watching spy movies, you probably know exactly what they're doing. But that's the point. So what they did here, what Pompeo did here, wasn't just like brash and that's the speech. No, he very specifically branded WikiLeaks as at least a tool of a foreign intelligence agency. So basically a foreign intelligence agency, so that they can do this shit. So now they can actually interfere with them even without telling Congress, right? Soon after the speech, Pompeo asked a small group of senior CIA officers to figure out, quote, the art of the possible. Oh, he's been reading Bismarck, apparently, when it came to WikiLeaks, said another former senior CIA official. He said, nothing's off limits. Don't self-censor yourself. I need operational ideas from you. I'll worry about the lawyers in Washington. CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, sent messages directing CIA stations and bases worldwide to prioritize collection on WikiLeaks, according to the former senior agency official. The CIA's designation of WikiLeaks as a non-state hostile intelligence service enabled the doubling down of efforts globally and domestically on collection against the group. I love non-state intelligence service. Like, what is that? That does not exist. Like, okay, maybe if you're Al-Qaeda and you have an intelligence service, but really an intelligence service implies that you're a state, really. This is bullshit. Those efforts included tracking the movements and communications of Assange and other top WikiLeaks figures by, quote, tasking more on the tech side, recruiting more on the human side, and, quote, said another former senior counterintelligence official. US spy agencies developed good intelligence on WikiLeaks associates' pattern of life, particularly their travels within Europe, said a former national security official. Asked whether the CIA had broken into WikiLeaks associates' home and stolen or wiped their hard drive, a former intelligence official declined to go into detail, but said that, quote, some actions were taken. I'm going to take that as a yes. So the whole thing, like with Andy Müller-Magoon and like, who was the other guy? Oh God, that crazy guy who was always saying they broke into his apartment. God, what was the guy? The guy with the glasses, the programmer. He was always at the CCC. Later got cancelled for apparently also like coming on to women at the CCC. You know who I mean? I can't remember. Then I got his face in front of me. He got so cancelled that he got cancelled on my brain. I remember we talked about him on Linux Outlaws because like he was in the open source scene, and like he was going on about, I think they broke into my apartment in Berlin. He moved to Berlin to be like more free or whatever, and then they broke into his I'm gonna have to, I don't even know what to search for. I know he wasn't he part of the CCC WikiLeaks apartment. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not gonna cut this out. I'm gonna try to find this live on the show. No, it wasn't Andy Müller-Magoon. I know they broke into his apartment as well. He gave a talk about that at the CCC like last year. So now it's all about that talk. God, it's so annoying. I got the guy's face. I can see his face, and I can't remember his name. It's like on the tip of my tongue. Um, what the hell was his? What else did he do? How can I find this? Jacob Applebaum, exactly. Astro C, thank you. Your Google foo is much better than mine. Jacob Applebaum, right? He was. What did he do again? Wait, let me just. He got so cancelled that he got cancelled out of my brain. I wonder what he's up to now. Let me just see. So yeah, he was dealing with the Snowden documents. Actually classified as a journalist here. Interestingly. Oh yeah, he was spokesperson for Tor. That was it. Yeah. Since 2015 and as of 2017, Applebaum's a PhD student at the Eindhoven University of Technology. There's nothing new in this Wikipedia stuff after 2016. I think he dropped off the face of the planet. But he was also going on about they broke into my apartment. He was always a bit unstable, so I wasn't buying it at the time. The Andy Müller-Magoon stuff was recently and was much better documented, and the guy's much more stable. And I don't. So maybe I'm pretty sure they broke into Applebaum's apartment as well. He probably wasn't crazy. I mean, we pretty much have confirmation now. And then now they're working on the plans, right? Break into the embassy. The idea was to break into the embassy, drag Assange out, and bring him to where we want. Some discussions even went beyond kidnapping. US officials had also considered killing Assange, according to 3 former officials. And then, they're saying here, it was viewed as unhinged and ridiculous, recalled his former senior CIA official of the suggestion. I recalled this former CIA official of the suggestion. I've been talking a lot today, you can probably tell. Sorry, my voice is going a bit. It's unclear how serious the proposals to kill Assange really were. Quote, I was told they were just spitballing, end quote, said a former senior counterintelligence official briefed on the discussions about, quote, kinetic options. I like that. That's why I made that the song title, the episode title. So good. Kinetic options. That's CIA talk. It's hilarious. I'm going to keep using that. I really don't like this guy. What are our kinetic options for him? Regarding the WikiLeaks founder, it was just Trump being Trump. Nonetheless, at roughly the same time, agency executives requested and received sketches of plans for killing Assange and other Europe-based WikiLeaks members, so not only Assange, who had access to Vault 7 materials, said a former intelligence official. See, this is why when the Russians go and poison somebody's tea with plutonium or spread Novichok all over the north of England or whatever, you can't really, when then the government, the UK government, the US government goes, oh, this is reprehensible. You're at the same time, they're having sketches, in quotes, plans prepared all the time for this kind of stuff, right? It's just and the thing is you don't know if they're just making plans and they never put them into action, or if they just don't get caught. Maybe they're just better than the Russians, right? I mean, such double standards. There were discussions on, quote, on whether killing Assange was possible and whether it was legal, end quote. There were discussions if it was legal. How would that be fucking legal? Right? I mean, maybe in the US, that was probably legal to just fucking kill Osama bin Laden instead of putting him on trial, which under the rule of law you would kind of expect. But it's not legal in the country where you're doing it. I don't know. I would say it's not legal in that case. But what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, obviously. But this is actually interesting. Whatever Trump's views of the matter at the time, his NSC, so his National Security Council, his NSC lawyers were bulwarks against the CIA's potentially illegal proposals, according to former officials. While people think the Trump administration didn't believe in the rule of law, they had good lawyers who are paying attention to it, said a former senior intelligence official. It's not a very popular thing to say, but I believe that actually. I believe Trump got in so much legal trouble even before he was president. I believe he had good lawyers. I would believe that in a heart, at a drop of a hat. So it's kind of the thing I wanted to drive home here is like, this is not about Obama or about whoever is president, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. That's what that's what a lot of my colleagues, when they were writing about this kind of stuff in recent years, they were always kind of trying to make out this is about Trump or whatever. Trump is evil. Maybe Trump is evil. Doesn't matter. Trump is gone. The point here is the CIA is fucking evil. The CIA is doing this. The CIA, who was, a lot of them were opposed to Trump. Same as the FBI. There was a lot of people in the apparatus. We know about this because they wrote fucking op-eds in the New York Times, right? A lot of these people were actually opposed to Trump. But still, they're still doing this shit. They're debating, and they're debating this right now. I can tell you, they're debating right now if it's legal to kill some guy somewhere. Right? This is all doesn't matter who's fucking president. Obama had meetings every Tuesday. We know about these, like the kill Tuesdays, where they were going through lists with fucking Obama at the table, thinking about who to fucking drone, i.e. kill, in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever. So they're all the same. Like, and these fucking intelligence agencies, they're not elected for 4 or 8 years. They're always there. Like, these fucking scumbags are always there. They're sitting there and they're doing their plans. And they're like, oh, we want to kill that guy, but he's a journalist, so it's maybe not so popular. Like, what the fuck? You're talking about killing another human being for essentially releasing the truth so the rest of the world can see it. And just out of spite, because, they're fucking embarrassed you or whatever. It's unbelievable. Like, that's not even... There's corruption in politics, right? And in the government. This isn't fucking corruption. This is like corruption of the fucking soul. This is like soul rot. It's unbelievable. And this is why I can't stand when like CNN puts on some guy who used to be like the CIA director or whatever, like Brennan. Like the fucking people who like fucking ran this shit. You're talking, like, people are complaining about like companies being immoral and fucking, ruining the planet. Like, these guys they're literally talking about killing people. And they're like, oh yeah, we had some discussions, this was legal, and I just went to the White House and said, we should really stop classifying these people as journalists so we can fucking shoot them in the head. Jesus. This is not a fucking video. We're not talking a video game. We're not talking a movie. This is the real world. This is the real world, right? People are discussing about like gun laws and can like some guy own a gun or whatever, and it's all being so dangerous. And the same people completely ignore that their fucking own government runs this shit. They run agencies who talk about killing other people. It's unbelievable. Kinetic, like a bullet, says Astro C in Twitch chat. Yes, because that's just the kinetic option. That's what we're calling it. We're not killing somebody. We're just discussing kinetic options. I'm just going to keep this. Sir, were you talking about killing this man on your podcast? Your Honor, I wasn't talking about killing anybody. We were just discussing kinetic options. Promise I won't be able to keep a straight face when I say this shit. This is why I'm not in PR or like a fucking intelligence service. Now, of course, I've talked about this now. Assange he's still being, under threat of being extradited, whatever. But we kind of still move. We've moved on from WikiLeaks anyway. This is all. We don't care about this anymore because, as the story says, in the end, meanwhile, WikiLeaks may be increasingly obsolete. The growing ability of groups and individuals, whistleblowers or dissidents, spies or criminals, to publish leaked materials online diminished the group's raison d'etre. We're kind of post-WikiLeaks right now, said a former senior counterintelligence official. Or, with other words, the threat is now not WikiLeaks. It's now basically perceived by these people, perceive the threat as coming from the whole internet. And that brings us seamlessly into the next topic. I said seamlessly and played a bumper. It's not very seamlessly. But yeah, so I want to bend this around now to my other topic, which I actually think is connected. So it's basically like a two-pronged approach or attack. If you break it down, the whole thing I was talking about, the whole outrage, CIA, basically what that is the state trying to prevent people from releasing information so the public can see it. That's all we have. The CIA is a government organization. It's sanctioned by the government, and if they're talking about killing somebody or, breaking people's apartments, disrupting their servers, whatever, we're talking about the state-sanctioned actions, or in some cases even violence, against people who I consider to be generally working in the interest of the public. What they're just trying to do is releasing raw materials, or, talking about what they see, what we like to call facts, what you perceive as truth, and talking about that and reporting about that. Now, WikiLeaks was kind of a fluke. It was, I think this article is right. We are post WikiLeaks because, thinking about it, nobody fucking needs WikiLeaks. It was a good idea having a wiki, or it wasn't really a wiki, let's be honest, but having a website where anybody could read anything. But we don't need that anymore. We got Pastebin. We can now release it. We can just put a document in some cloud storage. I mean, we can now put it on the blockchain if we want. You can put it anywhere, and anybody can do it. And that's the internet. That's why the internet, as I've talked often about, is a threat to journalism, because now anybody can publish anything. And so it's also a threat to the rich, the powerful, corrupt people, because people can now get their hands on proof or on data that shows that people are doing this thing. They're doing things in the dark, maybe they're moving money around, maybe they're laundering money, maybe they're not paying their taxes, right? You can do that, and you can release that, and the public can see that. Now, I've talked a little bit before about this unholy alliance between, what I think is an unholy alliance between journalists and intelligence services. And this crystallizes it even more. Because, the intelligence services have an interest of disrupting people getting their opinion out. People like me saying these things is uncomfortable, but then even, people releasing confidential materials is even worse. So they're trying to stop that. And in what must be the biggest irony in the universe right now, journalists, whose actually job it is to be on the side of the people against intelligence services, who are lying, cheating agents of the state, by definition, who put out propaganda, that's their fucking job. Journalists are on the other team. But they perceive the same internet and the same websites and the same ability to publish by anybody as a danger. And so they are also opposed to, operations like WikiLeaks, people that are doing this kind of stuff. They're trying to, now even trying to brand them as not journalists. In the beginning, as I said, they were pretty much all smart enough to see if Assange is not a journalist, then you probably yourself aren't either. But that's turning. We now have a press that is driving a public discourse where this kind of leaking, and generally just free speech, is discouraged, where that is painted as something bad. That is hate speech, that is hate on the internet, and the internet is so hateful. We talked about this a lot. And I've talked about in, I think this was episode 90, I feel, yes. I talked about Frances Haugen, who is this Facebook whistleblower, who is, somebody who worked at Facebook. As I feel a genuine whistleblower, of course. I talked about Greenwald talking about her and kind of saying she isn't. And like in this news piece, which I'm also linking here, he also calls her an activist, not a whistleblower. I think she's both. She's a whistleblower. She's just being used. And she's acting like an activist, right? So instead of, concentrating on Facebook's business model, Facebook having too much information about all of us, using that in ways that's not good for democracy, she is concentrating on Facebook not doing enough to curb the evil hate speech, and the evil stuff. And I've talked before a lot, and I don't want to go into this discussion again, but basically, one person's hate speech is another person's expression of free speech. And it might just be reporting, right? You might write something about something that somebody doesn't like, and then it gets branded hate speech. That you think that's far-fetched. It happens easily. I've written columns probably. I have written columns in Heise that were internally by colleagues, which I learned later, called actual hate speech. And we're talking about, I was writing a column about sexism in video games. Actually, a reply to another column by another colleague who'd complained bitterly about sexism in video games. And I'd said, it's actually my point was basically, yes, it exists, but might we concentrate on the actual sexism in society first, like in fucking boardrooms and in the subway, and maybe that's a bit more important than if I can have a female character as well in a video game. And that's for me, that's an expression of opinion. That's making a point. For some people, that is actually hate speech, and they want that deleted off Facebook. And so this alliance is building unwittingly. These journalists don't want to help these intelligence services. I think most of them don't. But like this alliance is building where they're both pushing in the same direction, where they both want, social networks, the big social networks, Facebook, Twitter, the messengers, Telegram, Instagram, all that. These for people who are not like you and me, probably, if you listen to this podcast, those sites represent the internet. They are 90% of the internet. This is at least where all the talking happens. Then there's a part of the internet where you buy shoes, and then there's email. That's the internet. And so for all intents and purposes, that's the internet. Because let's face it, nobody's fucking going to the private citizen.press who isn't like, not some normal guy off the street or girl is going to do that. So it might as well not exist if it's not on one of these platforms. If you can't find it. That's why I post stuff there regularly, because I want other people to find this. People who are maybe not like into this area as much as you, if you've been listening to this for longer, probably are. So it's essentially the internet. So what these people essentially want to do is that the internet will be policed for content of a certain kind, hate speech, whatever. And they actually want to make it illegal. It's in Germany for some reasons, if you publish a, Nazi propaganda, whatever, that is illegal. And they want this to happen in the US and the UK, but now for many more topics. And I talked about how we are changing the law in Germany in the same direction as well. And so what Greenwald was writing about this week in his Substack was basically that this whistleblower, Francis Horgan, is financed by Pierre Omidyar. And Pierre Omidyar is is a billionaire. Is, I think, among the 30 most wealthy men or persons in the world. He founded eBay. That's how he made his money. And interestingly, he used to employ Glenn Greenwald, who when he was doing the Snowden stuff, left The Guardian. I still don't really know why, and founded The Intercept with some other people, and Omidyar paid for it. And this is a very long story that Greenwald has written, which I'm not going to go into in depth, but it's very interesting to read. He spends an inordinate amount of time defending Pierre Omidyar, where he's like, he promised us editorial independence, and he never went back on that, right? So Greenwald left because he wrote a story about the Biden laptop and his editors at The Intercept, which Greenwald kind of founded it. So he kind of employed them in the first place. They were the ones prohibiting him from publishing that on his own fucking site. But he says Omidar never did that. But like he explains how if you have one guy who is paying for everything and he's basically your one reader that matters, everybody just basically falls in line. That just happens. And I've seen that. Like sometimes even involuntarily, you're not offending, you're not biting the hand that feeds you, especially as he says on The Intercept, where like apparently they're paid very well, a lot more money, than you would get in a comparable job anywhere else. So they basically do everything not to leave. Anyway, so he defends Omidar and he writes about that, his employment history. It's very interesting. But he makes a point at the end, and that's the only thing I want to read out because it's the only thing that's important. He nicely sums up a problem that we have, and something that I've run into as well. Maybe not with publishing, but I've thought about in the past why for example, I'm generally an opponent of people like Bill Gates, who all these stories. He gave all his money away. He's still the fucking one of the richest men in the world. Apparently these people, that's why Greenwald writes about this as well, they give all their money away and they're still rich and they continue to get richer all the time, and it's a farce. And apparently these like rich people are helping the planet. I've never understood this, right? Right now we have like a space race where like some of them, very rich people, are building incredibly penis-shaped rockets, shooting them into space, shooting old men who used to captain the Starship Enterprise into near space, just because I have the bigger penis and my penis has Captain Kirk on board. It's just a travesty. Anyway, he sums this whole billionaire problem and what it does to our society, especially when it comes to publishing, up very nicely. So Glenn Greenwald writes, the internet, as they know, he's talking about anyway, the internet is one of the few tools, arguably the only one, that can level the playing field, that can allow non-billionaires a fighting chance to be heard above the systems they erect and control. The absolute last thing we should want or tolerate is for those same billionaires scheming to control the internet to eliminate the last vestige where dissent and free thought that is not subject to the oligarchical control can still thrive, to their oligarchical control can still thrive. The current billionaire-funded campaign that uses Hogan as a telegenetic hero and exploits multiple political and health crises to keep fear levels high is about nothing other than seizing control of the internet, to permanently neutralize it as an oppositional force where dissent and anti-establishment organizing and discourse can thrive. And if we are going to have real debates about what is and what is not, quote, harmful content that must be banished from the internet under the penalty of criminal prosecution, then that should at the very least be a collective judgment, not one dominated by a tiny handful of multi-billionaires who use their bottomless wealth in the dark to shape society to conform to their ideological preferences and other interests. I don't think that is hyperbole. I think he's right. I mean, that's what Bezos is doing with the Post as well. So the internet and people who are just on the internet and they're just telling it as they see it are now under attack, both from instruments of state power, i.e. intelligence services, but perversely also from people in civil society who for some reason want to give the state even more instruments and more power to do this. And perversely by journalists who support this, who should be on the side of the people, but they're not. They're not interested in you having your free speech on the internet. Because they're in a position, or they're used to a position where they used to be the ones. I mean, everybody can exercise their free speech, but if you have a printing press, people actually read and they hear what you say, whereas if you're just on a street corner on a soapbox, nobody fucking gives a shit. And they want to I don't think it's an evil conspiracy, right? It's just like they even subconsciously, they and the people who employ them, i.e. the publishers, are trying to preserve that. And so I feel like what's happening here is actually, it's a lot less benign, but it's the same thing that the CIA is doing. The CIA is trying to kill or punish people who are doing this, and these people, these billionaires, these politicians that are, people that are influence these politicians, these journalists are basically doing the same thing. It's a lot more subtle, and they're not shooting people, and they're not, doing illegal stuff. But I think it's even more dangerous. I think it's incredibly dangerous to our society, because the press here, right? So instead of realizing, right, that the press, whistleblowers, and just ordinary people like you and me who are reporting on, what they've saw or maybe experienced, it used to be called citizen journalism, they're the only bulwark against misuse of power, right? But you have, for some reason, instead of realizing that, liberal, people that are called liberal or progressive politicians, of all people, are the ones who are trying to eradicate this freedom, right? And the press is helping them. It is unbelievable. As if the press doesn't realize that in trying to get these laws passed, they'll be impacted at some point as well, right? They won't be able to write what they, I mean, how can you make your living trying to describe what is happening, as true to the for lack of a better term, the truth, and you want to stop people from doing that? That's like you're being employed to lay blacktop, and you're actively advocating against cars. It's just, there's probably people who do it. These days, yes, there's probably some environmentally conscious road workers who are we should get rid of all cars. And you're like, what is going on? Astros is trolling Twitch chat. So the theory, it was Soros giving her money, was false. It was other self-righteous billionaires. Probably Soros. Who cares? It's probably, there's just a lot of people. And it's not to me, it's not about the political. I don't give a crap what Omida thinks. It could be, if somebody was giving money to the Trumpers or whatever, it's the same thing. It's bad enough that we have all this, these campaign contributions and all that. That's already, infringing on how democracy is supposed to work. But this is, even worse. And it's just mind-blowing to me, the people that are doing this, right? That these politicians who should understand that a free press and free expression of opinion is important, because that's how they know what their constituents want, right? That they want to prevent that, and for the just the single reason. The journalists at least have some kind of vested interest, because they want to keep their special status among those who can publish their opinion. But these politicians, right? The only reason they want, or just the ordinary, not only politicians, but ordinary, just civil, private citizens, people like you and me, that are of this opinion and that are writing about this on Twitter or whatever, the only reason they want to take this away from whistleblowers, from the press, from other ordinary people, is because some people are saying things that they don't agree with. That's the only reason. If that's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I don't know what is. You're basically saying, okay, there's somebody exercising their free speech, saying something I don't like. I think this is dangerous for the country, so let's get rid of free speech. Because let's face it, that's what they're doing. We're talking about the most important sites on the internet where all of the talking is happening for, 99% of all of the conversations are there, which is 99% of public life these days. Nobody's going to a fucking demonstration or is going to the village square to discuss shit. This shit's happening on Facebook and on Twitter. That's where opinions are made these days. That's what you're trying to police about opinions. That's where you want to go and want to say, okay, you have that opinion, that's hate speech, you're not allowed to say that. It's unbelievable. And I see it everywhere. Like we mentioned in an early episode when I was talking about German politics, AfD and their like anti-immigrant opinions. I fucking hate, I don't hate that. I'm as far from that as you can get. I have absolutely no issues at all with immigration. At all. Personally. But I recognize, maybe it's because I study politics, but like you should learn this shit in school. I realize that if somebody has an opinion, and that opinion is not criminal, so there's no law, and there shouldn't be a law that says that that's criminal. It's not criminal to say, I don't want people to immigrate into Germany, right? Yeah, if you're like a leftist, you call that person a Nazi, but they're not like either in a historical sense nor in a political sense nor in any sense a Nazi. They just have an opinion you don't like. Yeah, it's a right-wing opinion. Of course it is. It's a stupid opinion. They don't have any evidence to back it up. That there's anything bad happening because of the immigrants, I don't know, whatever they say, they steal our jobs, right? Yeah, they all become journalists and programmers. I don't fucking know. It's ridiculous. But like you should recognize that they're allowed to have that opinion in the democracy. You can't go, that's hate speech. That isn't hate speech. I'm sorry. And if it is, then hate speech has to be allowed, because otherwise our democracy can't. That's a valid opinion to have. That's a fucking valid opinion to have. I'm sorry. I don't like it either. I don't like the opinion either. So let's do something about it. Let's talk about it, how it's a dumb opinion. Let's ridicule these people when they're posting that shit. And let's refute them with actual arguments. But everybody's too fucking lazy about this, for that. And they're just gonna go, we'll just don't allow them to have that opinion. And that, how short-sighted is that? Today is AfD guy's opinion. Next day it's your fucking opinion. There's going to be, you're going to make that law that certain things are hate speech and can be classified as hate speech, and you're not allowed to say those on the internet. The fucking government changes, the AfD, the people you want to protect the world from, gets into office, and suddenly your opinion is hate speech, and they're censoring you. I mean, you don't have to be a fucking genius to see that coming. That is obvious. You don't even have to have studied history, when if you have, you know that that's how it always goes. It's just mind-boggling. I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me how people can be that dumb and short-sighted, but apparently they are. And I fear that this is a real problem. Like, even more than the CIA shit, right? And even more than classifying journalists suddenly as not journalists, and you can fucking shoot them, which, should be a threat to me because I'm a journalist. And I'm sitting next to a window here that isn't fucking bulletproof. So, but what's worrying me even more is I feel by the time the general public will understand and it will have woken up to the fact what's really going on here, it'll be too late. Right? By the time people realize that if you take those freedoms away from one group, you can also take them away from your group. That's why the fucking, that saying exists. There's a German, Meinungsfreiheit ist immer die Meinung der Andersdenkenden. So, freedom of speech always means, at first, giving like the people who thinks the opposite of what you think. It's very long if you try to describe this in English. Freedom of speech. It's always the uncomfortable opinion. That's how you know you have freedom of speech. Because people are allowed to say that stuff. And by the time they figure that out, it'll be gone. Like that, it'll be gone, it'll be unrecoverable, and we'll be fucked because the rich will be even more rich and the powerful will be even more powerful, if that's even possible. I feel that's if things keep going like that, I feel like that's where we headed. And people need to fucking wake up to this fact right now. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how people, like, you got that whistleblower and you go like, okay, so the problem with Facebook, right? The problem with Facebook is that they're not censoring my speech enough. Right? The problem with Facebook isn't that you got like 3 apps on your phone, on your computer, and soon in your fucking car, and your washing machine, and your fucking stove that report everything you do to Facebook. And they know literally everything about you. Like, there are literally toilets. I see the tech press actually think it's a good idea to have a toilet that fucking scans your anus. There's like an anus scanner built into toilets while you fucking poop, and then figures out if you have a disease. And that's cloud connected. And that's the next company that Facebook will buy. And then they know, like, what your poop hole looks from the inside. Literally. I mean, how much more George fucking Orwell will it get before people understand what's going on? I don't get it. Anyway, I'm going to stop ranting now. Actually, Captain Egghead is linking me to something here. Wikipedia. What is this? This is a gravestone. First They Came is the poetic form of a 1946 post-war confessional prose by the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller. It is about the cowardice of German intellectuals and certain clergy, including by his own admission. First they came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews and didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by that time there was no one left to speak up. Yeah, that is so true. So I was talking about, what is die Freiheit der Andersdenkenden. Oh yeah, this is Rosa Luxemburg, of course. The amazing thing is that there's a fucking, article that says, oh, what this really means. It's actually the opposite. Freiheit ist immer die Freiheit der Andersdenkenden. So Rosa Luxemburg was a communist, of course. And it says, of course, this is all wrong because she was a communist and she hated democracy. Right? That doesn't mean that it isn't fucking true. The point where you realize you have free speech is when the people who you don't like what they're saying are allowed to say that. That's when you have free speech. Right? Like in Nazi Germany, the Nazis were probably thinking, yeah, of course we have free speech. If you're a Nazi, you can say whatever you want as long as it's approved by the party. I mean, that's free speech in my definition or whatever, what they were thinking. I don't know. It's mind-boggling me that people don't understand this. Anyway, I've belabored this point enough. Let's get to the feedback because we have some. And what am I waffling about? Let's get to the feedback. We got Barry Williams again. We were talking about his feedback in the previous episode, so he shot me a quick email, and I thought I'm gonna just include that. Make it short and sweet, the feedback. I still have lots of feedback, so if you haven't gone to yours yet, I will. Anyway, Barry says, what year did you study in Australia? What year of your schooling was it? I think I mentioned that at some point. I was in Australia in 2000 and 2001, so the second half of 2000, first half of 2001. I went to Gympie. I went to Gympie, the town of Gympie. I went to James Nash State High School in Gympie, Queensland. Truth more precious than gold. It's the motto. I actually have the school uniform in the other room. I'm a bit mad that I didn't get that. Yes, so I went to Gympie. This was the final senior year. I think so. That was year 12. I was in year 11 in Germany. We had 13 years of high school at the time. And year 11 was like a year where they recapped everything and prepared you for what in Germany were the 2 senior years. And if you were a good student, you could, like, it was generally accepted, you could do like a year abroad. And I did the second half of year 12, and then, because, the school year is the other way around in Australia, because their summer is when our winter is. So I did the second year of year 2 of year 12, and then the second half of year 12, and then the first half. But I did the second half of year 12, so after half a year, I actually did my, I think, was it Queensland Certificate of Education? I have that in another room as well. I'm gonna have to. Why didn't I look this up before? And why am I not prepared? Certificate of Education, or maybe QCE. Maybe that's what it's called now. The QCE was introduced in 2008 to replace the senior certificate. So I got a senior certificate, I guess, because anyway, it's a high school diploma. So I basically I finished high school in Australia after half a year. Did half a year, did that, passed relatively flying colors. I think I got a B in overall. I'll have to look it up. Might have been a B plus or whatever. It was pretty good. And then I just did another half a year. James Nash State High School. And if you went to Gympie High, shame on you. Barry says, goes on, I teach IT in Australia. You mentioned your school IT project of the Book Your Plane Tickets website. That sounds like a good project. I'm just not sure my year 10s could accomplish that. Yeah, so we did that obviously then in year 12. Also, it wasn't a website. We did like the back end thing. So this would be it was in Delphi, born at Delphi. It was so we coded the screen you would have as a when you print out the boarding passes, or I guess as a travel agent, when you like go, okay, so what seat do you want? Do you want a window seat? Do you want 12A? That, and of course the database backend. I don't even know if we've ever, did we actually, I think we finished the code. I think, so we were like, I think groups of 4 who did it. I can't really remember. I remember specifically one other guy did with absolute nerd, really cool guy. Man, he was such a nerd. He did all of the coding. I did more of the project management and actually mapping out what we wanted to do. But of course, I also did some coding. But like he did, like it was really. I think in the end we ran out of time, and like the user interface wasn't as nice as I wanted it. I really wanted to make it look good. That was my thing at the end, but we kind of ran out of time. I can distinctly remember we had to research everything, and this was like 2001, so it was a bit harder with the internet and everything. And we actually woefully underestimated how complicated this kind of seating on a plane is. And then we figured out that they do like I can distinctly remember, because I remember that from then, you know that sometimes when the plane's really full, but like the seats in the back are still, like they don't put people in the very end of the plane. And it's like, to do with weight distribution, and so you don't have a tail strike, and it depends on like how heavy the people are that board, and it kind of, well, they estimate that, but like the baggage, and it depends on like the type of plane and how how likely it is to tail strike, all this kind of stuff. And we were like, holy shit! Like we sketched this out. We did some research, sketched it out, and then it was like a rabbit hole. We were like, shit, we have to code this in as well. And now we have to code this shit in. I'm like, what the fuck? And the programmer dude's like swearing. He's like, this is a shitty programming language to do this in. It was fun. School in Australia was really good. I dare say I learned as much in 1 year in school in Australia as I learned in probably 4 years of German school. I don't know about certain topics. I learned more about history and European history, obviously, in German school. But like, I learned a lot about for life as well. Pretty much anything I learned for life, I learned in school in Australia. These kind of doing projects and then presenting them. I was deadly afraid of public speaking. I was like so shy. And I went to the school, and they had like weekly assemblies in the gym, like in the huge indoor whatever playing field thing. And I didn't know they had assemblies, so everybody goes, "Fab, we have to go to the assembly." I don't know, like, assembly? Assembly? What the fuck is that? I'm just there for a week, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody sitting down here? What the fuck? And then like the headmaster is like fucking Harry Potter, except I don't think Harry Potter was written back then. I don't know. Anyway, probably was. It was fucking weird. They had houses as well. Like, they had 4 houses. It was like really weird. And then the headmaster goes, yeah, blah, and this week, and we're doing that. And now I would like to say a special hello to our exchange student from Germany, Fabian. Can't pronounce his last name. Fabian, why don't you come up, tell about yourself, pronounce your last name. And I'm like, in front of like, I don't know, 800 pupils or whatever. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I learned, I lost my fear of talking to large crowds very quickly. And I think that's the reason why I'm podcasting now. Also, I learned English properly. And that's the reason why I'm podcasting in English right now. So, yeah. Let's all thank James Nash State High School. It was an amazing school. We went back to Australia a few years ago. I went past again. Sadly, we got to Gympie on the weekend, so they were closed. But I looked, this school is still there. This is much nicer now. I got some new buildings and pretty cool. Anyway, Barry also said, also, you continue to educate me on the definition of COVID-19. I was unaware that if you contract SARS-CoV-2, he's doing it correctly, I was unaware that if you contract SARS-CoV-2 and only get mild flu-like symptoms, I did not get COVID-19. As a middle school teacher, I'm concerned about my knowledge in this area, but I do not currently teach year 11, 12 biology, nor did I study this. Yeah, so, so the thing is that COVID-19 is like very specific collection of symptoms, right? Including like, severe lung problems and whatever. And if you just get the sniffles, which some people do, you technically don't have COVID because you don't have all these symptoms, right? You might not even get fever. And one of the actual, must-have symptoms is fever. It's just more complicated than AIDS and HIV, because I think, are there people who get HIV and don't develop AIDS? I think very, very few, right? The problem with I feel you, because I was up on, when this was all developing, I was up on figuring this all out, because I was basically reading the papers on PubMed as they were coming in on SARS-CoV-2 and on COVID. But of course, I had to fucking give that up months ago, because there's now like 300 papers a day. Of course, during last year, it was like, yeah, you had to stop. Like the big publications kind of almost entirely stopped doing peer review. They just basically publish shit with just minimal peer review. This is how like the fucking retracted hydroxychloroquine bullshit story like came out, and all of this. There's so many like really, really embarrassing things that came out of that. But it was just such a deluge of papers. I can't keep up with it. I don't know. These days, I don't even know how to find reliable information, because there's just too many papers. Lots of them are just trivial, and they just want to get COVID-19 in the title, because then you get quoted. Some of it is really interesting, some is very fringe. It's just like, and there's no of precious few reliable sources that I would even know, right? Especially like for a school teacher, until this shit goes into is settled into like a stable state where you could put it into school books. I think they're going to put it in earlier, because bullshit, but like, it'll be years. It's just such a developing situation. It's just like the scientific consensus is all over the place. Just if you pick out a very tiny area, you can just see how, like, if you just pick out masks, like, and look at the studies concerning actual SARS-CoV-2 and masks, they're fucking all over the place. like both from their findings, like do the masks help, in what context do they help, as also from their quality. There are some that are just fucking ridiculous. It's like, oh, we went to Africa, we gave like 10,000 masks to a number of people, and then other people didn't have any masks, and then later on we checked who got sick, and it's like your control is not comparable to your negative control. Like, how do you know these people used the masks? How do you know the other people just didn't get masks from some other source? Your testing regimen is like all over the place. Like, you didn't make sure that you tested both of these groups. It's like, I don't even know where to start. Like, how is this even a paper? Like, and there's lots of shit like that. So I totally agree with you. It's like really hard to figure out what's going on. It's at the point where it's almost impossible these days. And it's like, I mean, I talked to Barry about, like, we started this discussion about the terminology, and even like the terminology is changing. So I said, yes, language is changing, but not that quickly. And Barry was saying, why not use it? Like, everybody uses the terms. And like, we're losing that battle as well, because at the point where like the fucking vaccine, the companies who make the vaccine label the fucking vaccine the wrong way. You cannot have a vaccine against an illness, i.e. a collection of symptoms, COVID-19. A vaccine is a vaccine against a disease vector, a virus, a bacteria. So it's a SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, right? If we ever find an HIV vaccine, it's an HIV vaccine. It's not an AIDS vaccine. Because, like, if you're getting the symptoms, has nothing to do with what the vaccine does, right? It like doesn't, like, you might get the virus and you might be vaccinated and it might prevent you from getting COVID-19, but you might not be vaccinated. You might get the virus. You might not get COVID-19, right? Because what a vaccine does is like pumping up your immune system, giving it a leg up. If your immune system can already do that by itself, then, So it's specifically, it's against the fucking virus. It's not against the symptoms. It has the side effect of probably preventing the symptoms, so you don't get the disease, but might not get the disease anyway. It's like, it's very easy for people to keep. So I recently read something. I'm playing Dishonored, just for other reasons. Older video game. It's inspired by Victorian England, but it's also about the last big plague epidemic, right? The plague being the actual pandemic that killed the most people in human history. So the second one, the last one, which was, I think, the third one, which was relatively small, but it's the most recent one, so it's in people's memories. And there you have like the plague, right? Which there are three distinct versions of the plague. Plague is always caused by a bacteria, Yersinia pestis, and depending if you get it into the lungs, I think if you get it on your mucous membranes or ingest it, what's the other one? So if you get it in your lungs, you get like pneumonic plague. If you get it on your mucous membranes, don't you get like, that's bubonic plague? Or you can get it into your blood, I think, when you get bitten by a mite, like from a rat, I think. And then it goes into your bloodstream. Oh, that's bubonic plague, because then you get the swelling of the lymph nodes. Anyway, so there's like three very distinct diseases, right? They're different variations of you getting the plague. It's like COVID-19, because it would be plague 1, plague 2, plague 3, right? They're very distinct symptoms. If you have bubonic plague, it's different from having respiratory pneumonic plague. But the bacteria that causes it is the exact same bacteria. It's just the delivery mechanism, basically, that changes how your body reacts to it. Because it's not a virus, it's a bacteria, it's more local, stuff like that. So if you have a vaccine, that's against the plague, Yersinia pestis. It's not against the symptoms. And people they understand that. If you look at that Wikipedia article, it's like throughout, it's like clearly explained. On the Wikipedia article about SARS-CoV-2, they can't keep fucking SARS-CoV-2 and COVID apart. At least last time I read it. People fucking hate him. Anyway, let's wrap up this show, and let's tell you how you can keep it on the air if you want to. if you want to foil the CIA, this is how you do it. If you want to follow the CIA, you're going to go to Private Citizen Press, and you click on the contact form, and you can send me information. There's also a whistleblower contact form, and I have written a blog post how to use it, because that's non-trivial. Because if you don't want to be fucked by this, like Reality Winner was, then you need to take some precautions. I'm gonna take care that I'm not gonna Reality Winner your ass and release documents that whoever you're leaking from can then tell you did it and indict you or whatever. I'm going to give my best. As I said, everybody makes mistakes. Wikileaks makes mistakes. I'm certainly not free from making mistakes, but I know and understand how grave that situation is. That is one of the most important things of being a journalist. Protecting your source is the most important thing. Let's be honest. At least to me it is. Anyway, so if you have some information, do that. You can also fuck with the CIA, at least until they, I don't know, take me out. So be aware. I do not plan to kill myself. I will never do that. I would probably go out in a blaze of glory. So in case in case I ever get shot and then not at least 3 other bodies hitting the floor with me or from the opposite side, they probably took me out. Anyway, if you wanna keep this on the air, and I don't know if they become violent, it's probably all bets are off. But you can still become a patron on Patreon, and support the show. And it's basically pay what you want. It's a monthly subscription. You can also just send one-off contributions to producers@fab.industries. Producers@fab.industries. Via PayPal. It's all in the show notes, Private Citizen Press. And there's a link to the value for value model, which I explained a lot, so I'm not going to do that now, so you can read that yourself. In the spirit of the value for value model, I like to give credit where credit's due. So thanks to the people who brought this show to you today, who are standing up for free speech. Those people are Georges, Steve Hose, Butterbeans, Jonathan M. Heavy, Michael Mal Jensen, Dave, Michael Small, 1I11G, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Jackie Plage, Philip Klostermann, Vlad, IKN, Bennett Piata, Kaisius, Tobias, Fanny Mansour, Rudain the Insane, Joe Poser, Dirk Didi, Mode7, Sandman616, David Potter, Mika Rizal, Martin Avis, Mr. Amish, Dave Umrish, Drive Zero, Ricky M, Cam, Barry Williams, Jonathan, Captain Eckhead, RJ Tracy, Rick Bragg, D, Robert Forster, Superuser, No Reply, and Astral C. And also thanks to my Twitch subscribers, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm live streaming this on Twitch and then uploading to YouTube so you can see what I'm wearing or what I'm not wearing. And the people who subscribe to Twitch, obviously my channel, also support the show channels, Foxtrot Alpha Bravo. You can obviously subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. You have Twitch Prime, you have one subscription a month free. You have to renew every month, but it's pretty cool. So thanks to Mike the Dane, Jonathan MH_com, Sandman616, Bacon the Pork, Mod7 is unavailable, El Terrestrius Jim, Galterran, Redeemer F, Butterbeans, and JJ Guevara. Fucked it up on the last name. Who actually subscribed during the last live show. That was pretty cool. And then I also have to thank Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, a UK cloud hosting company who are championing free speech and providing me with the service that I use to bring you these wonderful audio files that are in your ear right now. So we all thank Bytemark, bytemark.co.uk. And that's it. Just got to mention Acoustic Roots. This is theme song to the show by Raul Cabazali. And I'm going to play you out with a song called Tennessee on My Mind. Yes, this one's for Butterbeans. Tennessee on My Mind. on My Mind by Will Harrison. And that's it for me for this week. See you again next week. Probably on Wednesday, if I can get everything out on schedule. And until then, stay free, stay open source. That's no one, isn't it? Aim to misbehave. And visit Tennessee.
I look out across the water, I smell the salt, I feel the breeze, but in my heart I hear the calling of my old home, Tennessee. We don't know where these rivers flow, or why the wind chooses when and where to blow. The sun is gonna rise each and every time, but I've still got Tennessee on my mind. From Reaper's Fork to Watertown, and maybe Johnson City or Memphis bound. No matter where I go, no matter what I see, I still hear the calling of Tennessee. Who we don't know where these rivers flow, or why the wind chooses when and where to blow. The sun is gonna rise each and every time, and I've still got Tennessee on my mind. I miss the smoke on the Cumberland and the fireflies at midnight, and the color of the leaves in the fall. Who are we to know where these rivers flow, or why the wind chooses when and where to blow? The sun is gonna rise each and every time, and I've still got Tennessee on. Yeah, I've still got Tennessee on my mind. Yeah.
That was a nice song, I thought. Let's save this. So got the show saved. I'm gonna run off and edit it now, but I'm gonna send you on to a Twitch streamer I really like. His name's Tiger Writer. I discovered him recently. It's a really cool guy. Swears even more than me, I think. Wait, I'm gonna take another screenshot for Twitter. For my this is for my upcoming jazz album. Wait, another one. So always take two. So I'm gonna rate you to Tiger Writer. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. I'll be back on streaming on Friday. I'll be streaming a Halloween stream. So Tiger Rat is actually playing 4 days today. I fucking hate horror games, but he's a nice guy, so I'm gonna raid him anyway. We're gonna do some horror, not really horror games, but like I'm gonna stream with Jonathan Halifa, co-op Escape from Tarkov. But I hear we're gonna do like really scary night raids, so it should be fun. And that's on Friday, 7 p.m. I'm gonna go live, and then I'll be back next week. I'm trying to do another extra episode, but I don't know. I didn't say anything on the show, but because I've got a lot to do, and I don't know if I can pull it off. But I'll try to. I'm trying to get episodes out before November because I'm doing NaNoWriMo in November, writing my novel. So that's gonna be challenging for the podcast, but I will bring you the episodes. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. Let's rate Tiger Writer, and I hope I'll see you soon. Goodbye.